Good evening. Welcome to another lecture of Scientifically Speaking, an interactive online lecture series that connects world renowned scientists to high school students and teachers. The topic for today's session is the power of language processing with Dr. Sudeshna Sarkar, Head of Center for Artificial Intelligence and Professor of Computer Science and Engineering at IIT Kharagpur. But before we move to the session, I would like to thank our guests who attended the previous lectures of Scientifically Speaking. Our 8 previous sessions have had over 65,000 registrations and more than 11,500 live attendees on Zoom and YouTube. The recordings of these sessions are on Ashoka's YouTube channel, the link to which is provided in your chat box. With that, I welcome our moderator for today, Dr. Sonia Bhari from Vasant Valley School, Delhi. Dr. Bhari has over 25 years of teaching experience, out of which the past 21 years have been at the Vasant Valley School. She has been instrumental in designing the integrated technology curriculum up to class 10 and envisioning the deployment of latest technology tools for classroom teaching and engagement. She has attended a number of training programs and conferences at places like Carnegie Mellon University, Melbourne University, and in Singapore, where she was certified as a trainer for Oracle SQL programming. A PhD in chemistry from Forest Research Institute, Dehradun, she worked as a chemist with Oil and Natural Gas Commission before changing her domain to computer science. A very warm welcome to you, Dr. Bari. Kindly take over from here and introduce our speaker for the day.
Thank you, Parul. Thank you, and good evening to everyone. I'd like to introduce our speaker today. Professor Sarkar is interested in applying artificial intelligence and machine learning methods to different domains. She has been working with natural language processing of Indian languages, information retrieval and recommendation systems, and text mining applications. She's interested in using machine learning methods for tasks related to climate modeling and prediction. She's also keen in doing analytics of mobility data and has been working on applications in the domain of transportation and logistics. Professor Sarkar has completed her MS in computer science from the University of California, Berkeley, and her PhD in computer science and engineering from IIT Kharagpur. I welcome you, Professor Sarkar, and the floor is yours. Please take over. You're on mute.
Thank you, Dr. Sonia. Thank you, Parul, Shubhrima, and others from Ashoka. Is my screen being seen? So in today's talk, I will talk about the power of language processing. By language, I mean natural language, the language which you and I use to communicate. Now, language is the tool which allows us to communicate, and it is an extremely important faculty of intelligence. It is the vehicle through which we learn, we capture knowledge, we think, we transmit information, we express complex thoughts, feelings, and make sense of complex and abstract thought. Without language, these faculties will not be possible. And when we communicate, there are two aspects to communication. One is we communicate our ideas or thoughts, and secondly, we receive the thoughts from others. Now, about 70 years ago, Alan Turing, one of the fathers of computer science, he proposed the Turing test as the test for intelligence. And Turing's test involves an evaluator who can pose a question to a system which is inside the room. And that system may be a computer or a human being. And based on the responses of the system, the evaluator needs to figure out whether it is the computer or the human. So the understanding was that if the computer can fool the evaluator into believing that it is human, then the computer would have passed the Turing test. And understanding and responding in natural language is one of the most important aspects of this test. Now, when we talk about natural language processing by the computer, we mean that we want to build computational systems that can analyze and understand human language and also produce natural language output. It also means a computational tool that can understand text and understand what is there in the text so that it can be used for several downstream applications. Now, there are various aspects and various, various skills which can be enabled by natural language processing. I will just mention some of the ones which you have encountered perhaps in your life. Today, different types of conversational systems or virtual assistants are very, very ubiquitous, whether it is, Alexa or Google Now or Siri or Cortana or different virtual assistants which help you shop. Such chatbots are very popular. We also want that the computer is able to read. As you know, today we have a lot of information overload. There's a lot of information, and the majority of the information is in unstructured form and much of it in textual form, in text and speech form. So if we want to get the advantage of this information, it is not physically possible for us to go through all this information. And also a lot of information is available in languages which we do not understand. So we want to have a system which can read this information, perform information retrieval or search for us, answer our questions, summarize the data into a form in which we can read or find new insights or get intelligence from this data. So some of the important skills are NLP-driven search, machine translation of natural language from one source to the target language, chatbots and question answering, we've already said. Then there's sentiment analysis, topic extraction, identify entities in text, extracting relations, monitoring social media, and so on. And NLP is important in a variety of domains, whether it is healthcare, so that the patient can communicate with the doctor or the researcher can get the benefit of the enormous scientific literature in the topics of their interest. In the field of education, where we can have tutors which can help students learn and give them personalized delivery and enable access to teaching material in different languages. In agriculture, law enforcement, analyzing public feedback, etc. So various domains, natural language processing is extremely important. Now, there are various levels of language understanding. For example, if you have text, first, the basic unit of language is words. Now, words, how they are written in terms of the alphabet or how they are composed in terms of their pronunciation. Morphology, which deals with how different units can come together to form the word. For example, if you look at the word disruptively, it has several units. Disrupt comes from dis plus rupt, then if, then li. These are different meaning-bearing units. And there is the syntactic layer, which concerns about the grammatical structure or the order of the words to form meaningful, grammatically meaningful sentences. And then so we can express the structure of a sentence in terms of a parse tree. Then semantics, which talks about the meaning. The meaning is meanings of individual words, the meanings of different phrases, and the roles they play within the sentence. Then there is the question of pragmatics, about how the language is used. If you say, can you tell me the time? The answer should be not yes or no, but the actual time. It's a request for telling you the time. Then discourse, which talks about how the different sentences in the document, how they link together. For example, to co-refer to find the pronouns related to a particular noun phrase and so on. So these are all parts of the different steps in natural language processing where we want to do the analysis of a sentence and go from the text to a representation which can be kept in the computer. On the other hand, natural language generation deals with going from the representation and articulating it in a natural language, which has also different layers. And then very important, if you want to work in natural language processing, you have to obtain the representation from the knowledge and data, how to get the representation, how to collect data. So that is an extremely important part of NLP. Now, NLP is quite hard because language is ambiguous, words have different meanings, sentences have different structures. When you say, I saw the girl with a telescope, it's not clear whether you saw with a telescope or the girl was with a telescope. And this sort of ambiguity can be at all levels. Then language is rich. The same thing can be expressed in multiple ways. And there are so many things that you can express. Then there are, 10,000, approximately 10,000 major languages in the world. And they have a lot of diversity. There are dialects of this, there are genres of this language. For example, the language which you write an email, and the language in which you tweet, or the language in which you send an SMS, or the language in which you write an essay, they are not all same. There are different styles and so on. Now, natural language processing, which started in the 1950s, has gone through several different generations. In the first generation, majority of the systems were rule-based and linguistically, linguistical rules were used. Then came the era of machine translation, machine learning. While machine learning today is being used in various tasks, in natural language processing also, machine learning systems have come to play an extremely important role. And of course, now, as a part of machine learning, deep learning is being increasingly used for various NLP, to develop various natural language processing systems. Now, many of you may have heard of the term of machine learning. What does it mean? It means that if you have a task to solve, and if you have data about the task, you try to learn a model from the data, so that using the model, you can solve the task in future. Normally, in the classical way, if you have to solve a task, you write a computer program or a computer algorithm to solve the task. But the machine learning way is to give to the computer a large number of examples of the input and the output, and then have the system figure out the algorithm with which the task can be performed. In various tasks, for example, suppose there's a task of identifying the structure, syntactic structure of a given sentence. You will take examples of sentences and their parse structure. And based on many such examples, your computer machine learning algorithm, machine learning program will learn a model so that given a new sentence, it can find its structure. And some of you may have heard of neural networks and deep learning, which is one of the most important machine learning algorithms today, and which have really solved, made great progress in various tasks related to natural language processing, where you get a text, something as the input, and depending on the task, you have different outputs. And then you have a neural network, some architecture of a neural network, which is a number of units which are connected together, a number of simple units connected together in various topologies and architectures, to which you feed the input-output specifications of the data, and the model is learned by learning the parameters of the neural network. And neural networks can be used for various types of tasks. For example, text classification, part of speech tagging, sentiment analysis, machine translation, topic modeling, and all of this can be learned by using a machine learning or deep learning framework. Now, if we want to work with natural language processing, as we said, words are somewhat the basic units of language. So you have to come up with a representation of the words and also sentences and other portions of text. Now, how do you represent words? One possibility, the naive possibility, is that if you have a set of documents of a particular language, we say that it is a corpus. Corpus is a collection of documents. You find out the unique words in that corpus. Let that be the vocabulary V. And suppose N is the number of words in V. Then you can use a vector of size N to represent a word. And the ith word is represented by having a 1 in the ith position and 0 in all other positions. So this is called a one-hot representation of words, which require a very high number of dimensions. A typical corpus may have about 100,000 distinct words. A typical small corpus can have 50,000 to 1 lakh different words, and you will require a vector size of this. More importantly, there are words which have similar meanings. Suppose a cat and dog has some similarity. Good and beautiful have certain similarity. Good and bad have certain aspects. So this sort of relationship between the words is not captured in one-hot representation. And one of the most important advancements in modern NLP came with a good representation of words using in the first 2013-14, they came up with a representation called word2vec, by which words can be represented as lower dimensional vectors having real valued entries. And these vectors can be learned from a corpus such that similar words have similar vectors. That is, the distance between cat and dog will be smaller than two completely different types of objects. Distance between the vectors representing two completely different objects. And typically, the word vectors would be of size from, let's say, 50 to 500. Right? And these models can be generalized a lot, this sort of representation, because the different units in the vector, they capture different aspects of the object which is being referred to by the word. Now, the idea of doing word2vec came from the saying that we shall know a word by the company it keeps. That is, if you consider a word and whose meaning you do not know, by looking at the various positions in the corpus, mentions in the corpus where this word is used, and looking at the context, many of you can form a good idea about the meaning of the word. And this idea is used to learn the word2vec embedding. There are two different models. For example, one of the models called CBOW, what it tries to do, it takes all the mentions of the word in the corpus, and for that, it constructs examples. Remember, we said that machine learning is the process by which a model is learned from examples. So what is the example? You look at a particular word. Suppose you look at the word surrounding, right? So if you look at the word surrounding, you look at the words preceding surrounding. Suppose the two words before surrounding and the two words after surrounding. So idea and predict are before surrounding, words and of are after surrounding. So from these four neighboring words, you try to predict the word in the middle, right? If you look at the surrounding words, you try to predict the word in the middle. And like that, you can generate many examples. And based on that, you can learn the parameters of the model so that the representation of these words, so we learn the parameters which tell how from the neighboring words you can get the representation of the word. And this you can train by the different word mentions in the corpus. There is another model called skipgram, where from the central word, you try to predict the surrounding words without getting into the details of the method. So what this method gives us is a representation of each word as vector. And then we can plot these words and we can find out whether similar words are related, whether similar words are close by in this vector space, whether relationships between the words are preserved. For example, a very interesting finding was that if you take the vector of the word king and subtract the vector of the word queen, and you take the vector of the word man and subtract the vector of the word woman, these two subtraction vectors are very similar. In this slide, we are showing you the vector of China and Beijing, Russia and Moscow, Japan and Tokyo, Turkey and Ankara, and so on. And we can see these vector subtractions are parallel. So what we have done is taken the word vectors and mapped them to a two-dimensional space for ease of visualization. Similarly, on the left-hand picture, we show the two-dimensional projection of the vectors of different words. And we can see that kitchen, vanity, sink, bathroom, toilet, table, bathtub, faucet, they come together. Whereas charger, battery, saw, DeWalt, wash, drill, tool, etc. come together. And even further, people have worked on embeddings of multiple languages and how to bring them together so that a word for cat in English and a word for cat in Hindi, they will also be nearby in this vector space. So we just want to show you, tell you an example of application of this word2vec. So in July 2019, there was this paper in Nature which showed that the material scientists, they applied word embedding to 3.3 million scientific abstracts. And then those word vectors were able to capture the representation of the words. And they found that the vector of ferromagnetic minus the vector of NIFE plus IRMN gives a vector which is similar to the vector of antiferromagnetic. And it was able to discover new thermoelectric materials. It captured the structure of the periodic table and so on. Now, today, there are many more I think my screen sharing has stopped. Just give me a time. Is my screen being shared? Can someone give me a feedback?
No, ma'am, we cannot see your screen.
Okay. Let me just stop and then I will check again. Can you see it now?
Yes.
Okay, so nowadays, people have worked with even more powerful representation of words, which are called contextual representation. Now, in natural language, there is a lot of ambiguity. The same word can have different meanings. The word bank can mean a financial institution or a river bank. So most of the common words, many of the common words have multiple meanings. So in the word2vec representation, a word has a single representation, but the context plays an extremely important role in determining what is the actual meaning of a word in this particular context. So people have worked with very powerful contextual representations such as BERT, GPT, etc. And without going into the details with these models, let me tell you that they have built up a representation which is so powerful that it has brought about improvements in multiple NLP tasks. Now, a language model is an extremely important concept about capturing the, what is a meaningful sentence? What is a sentence in a particular language? If you see a sequence of words, whether that sequence of words is likely to be a sentence in a given language can be, expressed by a language model. And language model has various applications like, predicting the next word or phrase when you type in your email or message, completing the sentence, automatic speech recognition. For the same sequence of phonemes, you can get formulate the sentence as I saw a bus or I saw a boss. But the language model will tell you which one of them is more probable. Now, this pre-trained language model based on training on the corpus gives you very powerful models which have been used very fruitfully in different NLP tasks. Now, one of the many most important tasks for natural language processing is to deal with the concept of multilinguality. As you know that there are so many languages in the world, and there are various, if you want to communicate with someone who does not know your language, you need to have machine translation. If you want to get access to some knowledge which is there in a language which you do not know, you have to take recourse to machine translation. So machine translation is extremely important. Also, when you want to process language text in various languages, and if you want to apply machine learning, as we have told, that machine learning requires a number of annotated examples. Such resources of labeled examples have been created for some of the rich world languages, but not available for all languages. So there's a lot of work which is going on to make linguistic models available for different languages. So multilinguality is an important aspect in which people are working on. So I'll just tell you some recent news. Google has released a multilingual BERT model. BERT is a type of contextual embedding which caters to sentence embedding for 109 languages, such that if a sentence having a similar meaning, whether it is a French or Hindi or Japanese, they will have representation in the similar part of the space. Now, machine translation is one of the most important tasks in which people started to think about and work on since the 50s. And machine translation involves taking a language in a particular sentence in a particular language for the source language and translating it into another language to the target language. For example, say from Hindi to French. Now, there are various machine learning models which are today being used for machine translation, out of which, the neural network based models, a very simple version of it is shown in this picture on the right hand side, called the encoder decoder model. And various advancements of this model are used for machine translation. And those machine translation models are built from parallel corpus. That is, you have a collection of sentences having, in two languages, a Hindi sentence and its French translation. And you have many, many such sentences from which your machine learning model can train and learn how to translate and use sentences. And there are various translation services available on the web, such as from Google, from Bing, from Facebook, etc. And you can make use of the services and see what is the status of machine translation in the language pair of your interest. Now, as we said, multilinguality, while there has been a lot of strides in natural language processing, being able to work with different languages for which a lot of resources are not there is extremely important, and a lot of work is going on in this direction. One of the things that I talked about is we would like to have multilingual representations, and people have worked on multilingual word-to-vec, multilingual BERT, etc. Also, we want to have models so that the same model can be used for solving the task, whether it is a syntactic analysis task or summarization task on different languages. So we want to have one model which can parse all languages, a universal model at all. And today, with the advancement of machine learning, with multilingual embeddings, with transfer learning, such work is going on. So this is a model of Google Neural Machine Translation, which was released in 2016 end and incorporated in the Google's translation in 2017, which is able to translate between multiple pairs of languages For example, suppose you want to translate from Hindi to Japanese, but there is no or not sufficient number of parallel corpus in Hindi Japanese, but because you have corpus in Hindi English, Hindi, maybe Hindi Bengali, etc., and maybe from English Japanese, it is able to do this. So this is called a multilingual machine translation system, one universal system which, when trained on some of the pairs of languages, is able to translate between the different languages. So another model which was released very recently, and Facebook in last week released an open source multilingual machine translation model that translates 100 languages. Then one application of language processing, which you might have encountered, is different conversational assistants, like virtual assistants like Google Now, which is not on your Android phone, or Cortana or Alexa, which are task-driven systems. You can ask these systems to set an alarm, to get a booking for you, write an email. So these are made possible due to the power of natural language processing. You can talk to your car, give it directions, ask about the health of the car, you can communicate with robots. You can have assistants which can help mental health patients by counseling. And then we have chatbots which can take the place of agents of call centers to customer services, tutoring systems for education. So these are some examples of conversational systems. What those systems do, they are able to listen to the user, capture the intent of what the user is intending, perform the task, and generate response in natural language. So this is typically how a conversational agent looks like. There's an interface, which can be a textual interface or a human speech interface. And then, the speech interface is speech recognition. And then after that, there's a language understanding to identify the domain, to identify the intent. And based on that, there's a dialogue management system which figures out, what action to take, what should be the response, formulates it, and uses a natural language generator system to give the output to the user. So there are also many other uses of NLP. For example, today, as you know, that a majority of the data is not in tables. It is in unstructured form, such as in reports, in news articles, which are being generated every day, in tweets, in social media, feedback, in emails, in speech transcribed to text. So a lot of data is there in textual form. So if you really want to do things properly, do things well, if you want to make different applications, you must be able to use information which is there in the text. So the field of text mining or information and knowledge extraction, they deal with capturing the information from text into a form which can be used. So for example, if you are a researcher in the biomedical domain, there are so many different millions of articles which are there in, say, PubMed Central or PubMed Abstracts. And if you are doing some research on a topic, you might want to find out not just the collection of papers, but what sort of knowledge is there in those papers, what are the knowledge people have already come across. And based on that, you can try to put them together, and from that, you can make new inference. So this is a small slide which shows a set of steps that in one of our projects which we worked on doing literature mining, natural language literature mining to discover different information. So for example, entity recognition is, we were working on a task where which would be useful for drug repurposing, where the entities of interest are drugs, diseases, and target. And we wanted to find out what are the different, we had to find out what are the different relations which are already there. So for that, we require to do entity recognition. You want to do linking of the entities the same entity being talked about in different places, recognizing that they are the same. Normalization, by taking a drug name and trying to tie it to a particular drug, identifying relations between the different entities, putting them together into a knowledge graph, and running various inference algorithms that can work with them. So I will not go into all the details, but this is an example of knowledge graph which shows different entities and how they are related. And this knowledge graph contains the different pathways, and by exploring these, we can do different NLP problems. So in conclusion, we can say that in NLP, we are really working on transformation from data-driven to intelligence-driven decisions. And for that, NLP systems have to play a key role. And for that, we need to have fluent human to machine interaction in all languages. We must have multilingual access. We must have mechanisms by which the information which is locked in the unstructured data of text, speech, etc., can be put into use so that we can derive meaningful knowledge out of it for solving different tasks. So natural language processing today is one of the most important technologies which have an extremely important role in various day-to-day tasks that we perform, and is going to play a more important role in the way we communicate with machines in the future. Natural language is a system which has evolved into a system where we can be very creative. It has a lot of richness, but it is also very hard to analyze natural language. But by having an ability to have a fluent communication in natural language, we can look for better use of technology and more new things being solved. So with this, I will stop my talk. I will take questions from you.
Thank you, Professor Sarkar. That was really enlightening, and good to see how much of work is going into this natural language processing. I was reading up on it, and I found that there are so many things that one has to look into and the challenges that are involved in it. But how much work is being done for Indian languages? Because we have so many languages in India. So is there some work going on in that also?
Yes, there is a lot of work being done. And actually, the major problem in working on Indian languages had been that when people got started doing it seriously, there was not enough annotated data. But for the last 15 years, a lot of groups have been working on natural language processing. Many people have also been working on developing resources and annotated resources for natural language. So a lot of groups in India are now working on. The main challenge in India is that we have to deal with not one language. There are 22 scheduled languages and also many other languages and dialects which people use. So while a lot of works, not a lot, quite some work has been done for languages like Hindi, Tamil, Bengali, Marathi, and a few, 4 or 5 such languages, but still a majority of the languages is not touched. But today there is a lot of, globally there is also a lot of models being worked so that one can easily transfer and cope with other languages. So this is an extremely important field of research where a lot of work is going on. And there is also a lot of interest in India, in taking forward work on natural language processing in Indian languages.
Yeah, especially since India is now also going the digital way, and digitization is
right. Earlier, most people who used to use the web were English literate. Now a lot of people use applications on their smartphones and other things, which can be enabled through speech. Now people, when you talk about language, you do not really separate. So you take speech input and speech output. Through the speech-driven interfaces, you can bring the enormous power of information. You want to bring information to the hands of the people, whether it is a farmer who is trying to decide, where to sell his product, what to sow, getting information, people who are, manufacturing their products and want to sell. So there are different users from the agriculture, there is students, various things where people need information which is may not be there in my language, may not be there here. So we want powerful platforms which can connect people with that information through natural language.
I'll take the questions now. So someone is asking that what is your outlook about the understanding text, about understanding text, speech? What are the significant challenges? I think many of them you have listed out, but
Actually, natural language is very hard. So initially, when people started working with natural language, they soon realized that language, which comes very naturally to children, 2-3 years old children that pick up natural language, it is actually extremely much harder for a machine to pick up language than to play chess. But today, with advancements in machine learning and by using such neural models, people, it's not that natural language is still very hard. People have not solved the issue. But today, there are a lot of practical systems using natural language, which is being used. So people have started to say that we will use the system, and the systems are getting improved with more data, more understanding, and so on. So there's still a long way to go, but various services, like NLP is one of the very important components in many systems used by people, and its importance is only growing. And the technology is not yet perfected, but it is good enough for various applications, at least to start working with.
Okay, another person is asking, what role can artificial intelligence play in school education?
So I think artificial intelligence has a lot of role to play in school education. I'll just talk from the point of view of natural language processing. If you want to give personalized attention to people, if you want to, give them, different, you have to be able to communicate with the students one-to-one. And it is not possible always to have teachers to do that. So, NLP-driven personal teaching assistants can take over some of this responsibility of tutoring students. Natural language understanding can play a role in helping teachers to evaluate student answers, and not only helping teachers, but also enabling students to quickly evaluate how much they have learned, and helping them to decide what pathway they should follow. Since natural language is the most important means of communication, if we have these tutoring systems, learning management systems powered with language, they can be more useful.
Okay, another one is saying how media should use these attributes to benefit encoding and decoding.
Media is already using a natural language processing.
Yeah.
What I understand is a lot of news articles which are being put out there. Maybe 70% of them are actually automatically generated by a natural language processing system. It's not all written by human editors. So a lot of role of helping media to write articles, text summarization, writing, all this thing, text generation, it is a very important, skill which is being used by media. And also the other important thing is that, if you want to monitor, if you are a company, you want to monitor customer feedback, what people are talking about your car. If you're a government law enforcement agency, if you want to listen what sort of discontent people have, you have to look at, what sort of signals are coming on the different media, in the social media, news, blogs, etc. And through natural language processing, that can be obtained, for law enforcement, for security, and various, for customer input for industry. Natural language processing is a key technology.
Okay, someone is asking what is exactly meant by conversational agent?
Conversational agent is a system which can carry on conversation with the user. Just like I'm having a conversation with you, you can have Alexa conversing with the user. So they can be task-driven conversation. They could be, just conversation for fun, like, systems like old systems from Eliza and so on, and also task-driven agent. Then they're virtual shopping assistants and so on.
Another question is, how do you see the role of human language once machines start reading and understanding the knowledge? Uh, can AI observe a phenomenon and draw conclusions and form a knowledge base?
Absolutely. Language is the most important way through which people communicate, people write their thoughts. So language captures people's thoughts, ideas. So that entire richness of our thoughts, understandings are captured in language. If an AI system can understand the language, and then, the advantage of AI systems powered by this modern computer servers is that they can read millions and billions of documents. A human being can only read a few documents themselves. So if the system can read and gather the intelligence and put them together, that can lead to new knowledge. So it is very important to have systems which can understand language in a way that the important information can be captured.
Okay, there's another question which says, many times it is not possible to translate the local languages because of idioms and phrases, riddles, puzzles, etc. to English with AI.
Right.
What is the solution?
Yes, I think you can finish the question.
Will it be corrected in the future?
So the key, important thing is that natural language, machine translation today uses machine learning. So what machine learning requires is a sentence and its translated system sentence in the other language. As you gather more and more such data, and then the machine translation systems can improve. If you have more and more examples of those idioms, phrases, etc., in the corpus, in the parallel corpus that machine learning systems use, they will be able to translate. Of course, the natural language has a lot of, hardness. So new things come which have not been seen in the past. So, and there are ways in which people are trying to address this, but machine translation is still far from perfect, but still a lot of advancements have been made, even in capturing idioms, phrases, etc., which come from popular language pairs.
Okay. Someone is asking, would you like to share with us the reason why you chose this field? What made you gain interest in NLP?
So I have been working in artificial intelligence since the beginning of my research career, and also machine, applications of machine learning. I have an interest in language, and that first drew me to the field of NLP as an application of AI and machine learning, and my interest in language and the system. This field has extremely interesting there's a lot of understanding of Phoenician linguistics and other things which are very important to get into the field. But nowadays, a lot of machine learning and different novel ways of using machine learning for different interesting NLP tasks. So this is an interesting field, has a lot of potential, has a lot of impact.
And a lot of applications also, because it can help in any way.
Impact people.
Yeah, it can impact. Another question is, how is AI used in elucidation of DNA structure and DNA sequence and sequence alignment of DNA protein? Is HMM could help you retrieve the deleted sequences by any type of mutation besides matches and insertions?
Now, various problems related to sequencing, etc., is done using different AI algorithms. So I will not really comment on that now. Hidden Markov model and various other such systems are there. So from the point of natural language processing, and I will only restrict myself today to natural language processing, using natural language processing, what people are doing, they are supplementing the information about, when you look at about the actual sequence, the alphabetical DNA sequence, or the name of the molecular structure of a drug. So that type of structured information is already there. We supplement with information which is obtained from the text. By looking at the text and finding out information which people have already written, but very difficult for humans to read all of them and put them together, we use NLP to recover that information, and we use fuse this multiple sources of information into powerful representations which help us to find new conclusions. You can find a new drug for a disease. When people are, whether they're successful or not, when this COVID came into being, and because finding a new drug, finding a new vaccine takes a lot of time, it requires trials, phases, it cannot be expedited. But if you had an existing drug which was being used for some other disease, which has already passed through some stages of safety, etc., trial, if they could be repurposed for a new disease, these are the sort of research people can have been doing. And for that, they look at different information like the structure of the molecules, the structure of the virus, along with information that is available in textual form. And so today, these fields are not distinct. NLP, AI, machine learning, and the application domain, they are coming together so that very important applications can be developed.
Okay, there's another question which says, for a text generation algorithm, can a Markov model with a very large data set fare better than an NLP algorithm?
NLP is natural language processing. Markov model is one type of model. Neural network model is another type of model. So, for doing natural language processing, people have been using different models. For example, Markov models were used for part of speech tagging. But nowadays, more powerful neural network models are used when you have a lot of data. And for text generation, for example, one of the standard neural network models are encoder-decoder model, and then supplemented with attention, with transformers, with BERT type of embedding. And so these different technologies are helping us to develop newer models, which can help with the generation of text, conditional generation of text. So you can write 2 lines of a story, and you can have a NLP system or a neural network system which can complete the story for you. You can have an NLP system write a paper which gets accepted into a major conference. And the only way it writes is that it digests a lot of papers in that domain, learns the model, and then generates this thing. You can digest all of Shakespeare's works and try to write a paragraph which reads like Shakespeare.
I'm just looking at some more questions. 1 second. How does machine model understand concept of time or tense?
So, when the words or the sentences, they have certain, in natural language is a highly redundant, different languages have different characteristics, but the morphology of the word in many languages or, different other words associated give the feeling of tense. For example, in English, you have, you put ED, with the verbs, say dance and danced, speak and spoke. Okay. So, there are the words in their present form, past form, having looked at different, words, their usage, the machine can understand the forms of the different tense and time. So there is, when you talk about representation, those representations can come up with the text, understanding of the tense and different aspects. That is one aspect of it. The second aspect is, if you talk about an AI system, so if you want to talk about machine translation only, where the tense, number, gender, etc., must be preserved from the source to target, that can be done by having a lot of examples. But if you want to use the tense, etc., for doing further reasoning, you also have to fuse the output of the NLP system with AI, more broader AI systems that can reason with time in a way, so there are two ways in which modern AI is done. One is the connectionist system, where the end-to-end system is built of a neural network. The other is the more symbolic and traditional system. And today there is a coming together of the system where you can take out these aspects of time, causality, and other things and have reasoning systems fused with the connectionist systems. So a lot of work has happened, but there's a lot of scope of this type of work, which had been done in AI in the beginning. working with situation calculus are the logical representations of time and space. And it is coming back again to supplement the current connectionist neural systems with those AI concepts.
I think we'll take the last question, which is, which journals can one read to know about the recent developments in NLP?
So in the field of natural language processing, there's one good journal, Computational Linguistics, but the major venues are the conferences. The conferences for NLP, the top conferences are ACL by the Association for Computational Linguistics. Then there is EMNLP, Empirical Methods in Natural Language Processing. There are NAACL, North American ACL, CoLing. So these are a few of the top journals in the field of NLP. And a lot of papers in NLP also appear on different machine learning journals, machine learning conferences. So because the pace of work in NLP is very fast, people prefer to publish in conferences.
Thank you, Professor. That was really enlightening. I think now Parul would be taking over.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Sarkar and Dr. Bhari, for that very interesting session. I'm sure our audience enjoyed the lecture and the Q&A discussion. We really look forward to having you back on Scientifically Speaking soon. I would also like to thank the organizing committee. 14 distinguished educators from schools across India have helped us put the series together. Without their continued support and feedback, this would not have been possible. The recording of today's session, as well as all previous sessions, is available on our YouTube channel. The link is provided in the chat box. I would also request our participants to take a minute to fill our feedback form, the link to which is provided in the chat box. Our next Scientifically Speaking session is scheduled for November 17. This is a panel discussion with industry leaders and academics on career opportunities in 2030 for today's students of science and technology. The panel will talk about the kind of basic, advanced, and transferable skills students should master while they pursue higher education. The registration link for this is available in the chat box. We would also like to invite our guests to join the open house on undergraduate program and admissions this Friday, 6th November at 6 p.m. The link to register for the session is provided in the chat box. For those of you looking to apply for the undergraduate program at Ashoka, applications for the first round of admissions are open. The deadline for round 1 is 18th November. For more information on the process, timelines, and requirements, please visit our website www.ashoka.edu.in or write to us at apply@ashoka.edu.in or call us at the number shown on your screen. See you on November 6th at 6 p.m. Take care and stay safe.
Thank you very much.